Now I have to admit, I'm not really sure what category of game to put Medieval Dynasty in. It looks like an RPG, sort of simulation type game, but it's more of like a resource management, collection, town builder sort of thing. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. The basic premise is you're a young man escaping a war-torn country and you move away to make a better life for yourself. You do this by setting up your own little village that you become the chief of, and you literally have to build it up from scratch. And when I say build it up from scratch, I genuinely mean you build it up from scratch. You literally have to cut down the wood to collect the logs and collect stones for building materials, and then piece by piece you slowly build your buildings up. Building your town is the overall goal, but as your village starts to develop and people begin to move in, the game takes on the next form, where you have to manage your villagers, giving them somewhere to live, keeping them warm in the winter, feeding them, and just giving them jobs to do around town. As you complete more tasks and missions, your village reputation grows, and then you'll attract more people with better skills to your town. As you level up from completing tasks, you can build more sophisticated buildings and offer more interesting, uncomplicated jobs to the folk that have chosen to live under your rule. These workers then go out themselves and bring in the resources and help speed up the building process. They hunt, they farm land, and they help sustain the growth of your empire. As the resource management starts to get more automated, this gives you more time to work on your personal skills and technologies. This is split into two branches. One is your own skill, which improves your character's ability to do certain things. It makes you easier to track animals or increases the durability of your tools. You get hungry and thirsty less quick. You get the picture. The other branch is the technology tree that unlocks buildings. So, for example, if you perform hunting tasks like hunting rabbits or deers, you gain experience in hunting, eventually unlocking buildings in that technology tree, like a fishing hut where you can then put a villager in to fish for you and bring in resources that way, or you can get better hunting huts where you can bring in more resources and staff it with more villagers. Or you might improve your farming level. You can then unlock a chicken coop, and this allows you to keep chickens in your village, unlocking eggs and a regular supply of feathers to then use with crafting materials like making arrows, etc. There's four main skills in this technology tree, and they all unlock different buildings, so it's up to you to decide what you want to progress through your village. Then you just work on that skill, and it's quite an interesting way of progressing through the game and improving technology. I quite like it. What I do love is as you start unlocking more buildings and making your town bigger, you actually witness first person these villagers going around and doing the jobs that you set them to do, and it gives it a certain charm and makes it more like a living, breathing town. Now there is a somewhat steep learning curve, which some people might like. I didn't mind it too much, but I did end up restarting my first playthrough after about 2 seasons because I just set up my town so inefficiently and it was just easier to wipe it out and start again. Outside of your village, the map is vast. You'll have certain tasks which make you go from different villages and find certain things around the map, and you'll need to go off on a trek, walking across the map and through the woods, which is a lot more straightforward sounding than it actually is. You might come across a bear, or if you don't take enough food with you, you might literally starve to death along the way. Adding on top of the danger is the change in seasons. If you decide to hike across country in the depths of winter, there is a genuine chance you will freeze to death out in the wilderness. And this adds an extra layer of realism to the game and requires you to actually forward plan what you're going to be doing over the next couple of days while the season is going on. I did like this element of realism, but at times it got a little bit annoying. Like in the winter, I was stuck around my village and I had tasks to do in the wilderness, but I knew it wasn't going to be an absolute pain if I left my village while there was snow on the ground. Moving on to the other big part of this game is the management of your village. There is literally countless tasks you can set your villagers to do, and you can move them around to whatever your village needs at that specific time. The depth on this part of the game is really intricate, and it takes a lot of time getting used to, and to be honest, the game doesn't help you a lot explaining the best ways to do this. It's a lot of trial and error, and I was reading some tips online, to be honest. But I've seen people online and they say this is absolutely their favourite part of the whole game, so it depends on the end user, I suppose. I do have some criticisms though. the lack of real any defining goal other than just building up your village as best as you can is a little bit frustrating for me. And not saying that I didn't get like hooked on progressing through things, and I probably slammed way more hours in than I was expecting to, but I sort of got to the point where I was just wondering, what am I doing all this for? And carrying on from that, things just take so freaking long to do. Building buildings, for example, going down manually, chopping trees and taking them back to where your building site is, takes a lot of time because carrying logs, as you can imagine, you become overcome really quickly, especially at the start. The trees take then 2 seasons to grow back, so once you've used them or cut them down, you're not going to be able to get any use out of them for a while. Again, this adds the realism and forces you to embrace the grind, which I did like for a long time. But after the joys of that wore off, I just started getting jaded by it all. Granted, you can build logging camps, so you can send out guys to collect logs from your buildings as you get further into the game, which obviously helps. But then, of course, you have to balance that out because then they won't be producing other materials like planks and firewood that you need to survive and improve your buildings. There is combat in this game, though it's not especially difficult, and to be honest, the AI is really poor. It sort of just doesn't know what it wants to do. They charge at you, and then you can sort of run away a few yards, and then they'll turn away and run away themselves, and then you can just turn around and shoot them with arrows, and you just repeat this process until all the enemies are dead. I mean, if you stood toe-to-toe with them, you could get killed pretty easy, but doing it this way with the arrows, it's not difficult to take down like 7 or 8 guys on your own, as long as you've got a bow and plenty of arrows. But to be fair, the combat side of this game is not really what it's about. It's very sparse, and you don't really run into many opportunities to wet your blade with the blood of your enemies. As I now come to the end of this summary, I found it really hard to put my finger on whether to encourage people to buy this game or not. Medieval Dynasty is in a sort of category of its own. If you're looking for an RPG, you won't enjoy this. There's elements of RPG in it, but it mainly comes down to collecting, crafting, building, and managing your town. If you like management games, there's a good chance you'll like it, but if you don't like having to craft and collect stuff, then you may hate that side of things and find it a real pain. On a personal note, I did enjoy it though. I'll be honest, the first couple of hours I played it, I wasn't really into it. It took me probably about 5 to 10 hours of grinding to start appreciating the depth that this game actually holds and understanding what I was trying to do. The developers have put a long time into the intricacies of all the different elements of this game, and it really does tell, because the more you play, the more little nuances you stumble across, and for that reason, they deserve some credit. Though, as I said, after a while, I did get a little bit bored, and it's got a somewhat repetitive nature of building and micromanaging your villages. I was going to give it a 6 out of 10, but for the pure effort and uniqueness the developers have put into this game, I'm going to give it a 7 because there's no other game like this out there, to be honest. And for there to be a completely new, unique game in this day and age is something that I doff my cap to. Thanks for watching.